Kieran, you're effectively the wrangler of the AI behind Heidi. So how often does Heidi update its AI models, and how do we actually go about communicating that to our users?
We try to kind of keep up to date. There are new AI models being released constantly, and our mission is always to make sure that we're using the highest quality model that delivers the most well-written clinical documentation.
As long as it's compliant, right?
As long as it's compliant,
yeah,
exactly. That's keeping me honest.
Yeah.
So generally we use two different types of AI model within Heidi. So we use a speech-to-text or transcription model, and we use a large language model for sort of transforming that transcript into meaningful clinical documentation. In general, we probably would try and evaluate the models that we currently have in the product at least once a month.
Yeah.
Okay. Generally, if there's a new model that comes out, we will sort of benchmark it against how well the model that's currently implemented is working. And then if we do decide to make changes either to the model itself or to the prompts sort of behind the scenes that are directing those models, then we would run sort of, again, benchmarking and regression testing to ensure that the changes that we have made don't negatively impact the quality of the either clinical notes or other documentation that's being made. Now, of course, actually letting our users know is a big part of that. And so we use a number of different methods of kind of keeping them up to date. So one is just kind of communicating via email. So regular emails that are sent out as part of product updates to say, we've made some changes to our model. You might notice that things look slightly different or they behave this way. But we also keep a public change log. So for any changes that are made to those models, users can log on and see what changes that updates have been made recently to get an idea of, oh, my note looks different. I now have an explanation for why that is.
And how do you take that feedback? Do you, let's say you've released a new model, users are noticing that their note looks different. Do you wait for just kind of one bit of feedback to come in, or do you collate a large group? How do you and your team actually go about then investigating why the outputs are different?
So I think initially when there's a change, people kind of tend to react all the same way, like, oh, it's different, it's not doing what I expected it to do. And that's perhaps just because there's been a change in the status quo. So when there's initial sort of perhaps like negative feedback, I usually kind of say, look, watchful waiting approach. Like, let's try and gather feedback, see if we can identify any trends that might essentially point to a specific problem which we might be able to fix. But generally, I try not to react, or we try not to react immediately. So rather actually get a feel for what is working well and what isn't. Because with any AI model, there's often a trade-off. It's this one does creative writing very well, this one's far more accurate, this one follows instructions far better, this one perhaps follows the template better, and often it is trading off between those to decide, right, this is actually an improvement, but obviously always taking user feedback into account. So
I guess a question I would ask then is, if someone's happy with the output, why bother updating the model at all?
It's a good question. And I think there's always, I guess, this goal of balancing stability with innovation, for lack of a better term. Our users are constantly, requesting new features. Can we add this in? Is Heidi able to do that? And so with each update and each new feature that's added, there's the sort of potential for inconsistencies or sort of instability or unexpected changes. But if you just stay stable the whole time, you risk being disrupted by another player in the space who is willing to kind of take those risks. So a lot of my responsibility is making sure that, yes, we do need to add these new features, but it needs to be balanced with ensuring that our existing users are not losing the quality of their notes that they've kind of come to know Heidi capable of producing.
Before any new model goes into production and live with users, you and your team, there is extensive testing done in the background.
Absolutely, and I think there's kind of two approaches that we take with that. So one is we've kind of got I guess you call it a golden data set, kind of something we've used with a number of different models that we've tried over the last few months, and I guess up to even a year, where we can kind of consistently see this is the output or the note that we expect to see. With this new model, it's doing this, but it's not doing that. And so the medical knowledge team typically, when evaluating a new model, would do regression testing using this golden data set to say, how well is this new model performing in comparison to the existing one, and have the changes made anything worse, have they made it better, and is this at a level that we are happy to say it's safe and of a high enough quality that we're willing to release it to users. That's generally the approach we would take to when we are wanting to update our models.